Why, hello there, YouTube, and welcome back to another History of Who. So I am Davros and I am a Whovian, and this week we are discussing, well, the 11th Doctor era. Bowties are cool. So in late 2008, an awards ceremony, David Tennant announced that he would be resuming his role of the Doctor in January to film four specials for 2009, and in 2010 the series would return. But he then announced that that series would not be with him. Also, Russell T Davies announced that he was stepping down as showrunner and that Stephen Moffat, who had wrote for the show as well, was going to take over as showrunner. So we had a new showrunner, but who was going to be the next Doctor? We were teased into thinking, oh, David Morrissey, but that wasn't so. But then, in January of 2009, a episode of Doctor Who Confidential, which was a spin-off show which took us behind the scenes of every episode of Doctor Who after it aired, we had a special where we had a look back at all the 10 Doctors, and then they had revealed the 11th Doctor, who would be played by Matt Smith, who at the time was a bit of an unknown actor. I mean, he had a couple of acting credits to his name, was friends with Billie Piper, appeared in a costume drama with her, Ruby and the Smoke, and then again in an episode of her led show, Secret Diary of a Call Girl. But yeah, Matt Smith, who was pretty much unknown at the time, received the part at the age of 26. And to date, Matt Smith is the youngest actor to get the role. Before that, it was Peter Davison, who at that time was 29 when he got the part as the Fifth Doctor. And it was, he was 29 at the time when given the parts. All the other actors before that, like William Hartnell was 55, Patrick Troughton was 46, John Pertwee was 50, Tom Baker was 40, Peter Davison was 29, and Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy were both in their 40s. Paul McGann was in his 30s, and Christopher Eccleston was like 41. David Tennant was like 34. So yeah, Matt Smith was, quite young at that time, at the age of 26. So yeah, he got the role as the 11th Doctor and apparently blew Stephen Moffat away at his audition. Now, Matt Smith, he stated that he's never watched the show. He never watched Doctor Who, and knew it was a TV show and it was science fiction and such, and that the lead actors changed, but he had never really watched the show, which Stephen Moffat thought was great because that way he kind of has a blank canvas. Of course, over time we noticed he did channel a couple of previous Doctors in him, whether he intended to or not, such as Patrick Troughton, especially with the love of the bow ties, saying bow ties are cool. And yeah, so in the New Year's Day 2010, we had a tearful farewell to the 10th Doctor, and it was the beginning of a new era. In spring 2010, April 2nd, Easter Saturday, Doctor Who returned for its fifth series, or season 31. But yeah, the show returned, and Matt Smith made his proper Doctor Who debut, where we were introduced to his new companion as well, Amelia Pond, or Amy Pond, who was first played by Karen Gillan's cousin, Caitlin Blackwood, before, doing the time jump and her then being played by Karen Gillan, who had been in the show before. She appeared in the series 4 episode The Fires of Pompeii, and so she was no stranger to the show. Matt Smith, he then co-starred alongside her as the 11th Doctor, and it took a full episode, but I quickly warmed up to him. I mean, I had a year to get my head around David Tennant leaving, and yeah, Matt Smith became the Doctor, and he had the tweed jacket, the bow tie, there, the 11th Doctor, the science nerd, or the professor as I like to think of him as. So then we were treated to an episode every week, 13 episodes, featured the return of the Daleks. Of course, Stephen Moffat said to him, this facing the Daleks or a Dalek is a rite of passage for each Doctor. Like, you're not fully the Doctor until you confronted at least one Dalek. So we got them in there, and that explained why the Daleks changed their shells as well, that they make new Daleks. Also, Stephen Moffat's era did tie another loose end, like how the TARDIS has changed over the years, because over the years the TARDIS has changed its appearance in the console room, but they never fully addressed that. I think they did in one serial where the Doctor Tom Baker went to another console room. But yeah, Stephen Moffat's era actually, explained how the TARDIS changes, and like the Doctor, if it's badly damaged, it can rebuild itself. So yeah, we had 13 episodes. We featured the return of the Weeping Angels, which was a Moffat creation. We got the return of another creature, the Silurians. And then, of course, his first series, we had the Crack in Time, which followed the Doctor around. And that crack would go on to be a part of his whole arc. Cracks in the time and stuff, which would erase people from existence. But then the Doctor found the Pandorica needed to... that he used to reboot the universe, causing a Big Bang 2. We also featured all of the Doctor's foes teaming up to form an alliance against him. So then we got our Christmas special, A Christmas Carol. First Christmas special to be set in the far future. And at this point, Amy's husband, Rory, Arthur Darvill, came on as a full-on regular, and also Series 6, we got answers to who River Song was. River Song first appeared in the episode Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead in Series 4 with David Tennant, and she would become a reoccurring face through most of the 11th Doctor's run. And we found out that she was genetically altered to have Time Lord DNA and regenerate, and she lived alongside Amy as her best friend Melody. Only Amy named her daughter after her daughter, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. And yeah, we found out that River Song was Amy and Rory's child, and that she was genetically altered to be a weapon against the Doctor from this religious order called the Silence. The Silence were a part again of the 11th Doctor's era. Silence being genetically altered priests that will make you forget the second you take your eyes off them, and also a religious order. So yeah, Matt Smith had his second series, and then in his third series, which aired in 2012, Series 6, Part 1 aired, then in the spring of 2011, but then they thought, let's try something a bit here, let's give the series like a break. So then in the later in the summer of 2011, we got Part B of that series. And then in the late summer, just after the Olympics of 2012, Doctor Who returned for Series 7, where we see the Doctor face the Daleks, goes to a western town and stuff, but loses his companions Amy and Rory to the Weeping Angels. Then we get a Christmas special where Clara Oswald joins the team, the TARDIS crew, but there's something mysterious about her. She appeared in the Series 7 first episode, Asylum of the Daleks, and then she returned again in the Christmas special, The Snowmen, but we found out that she wasn't just an actress being reused again, she was the same person, and twice dead. Then the Doctor found her in the present day, and it was like, who is she? Well, at the end of Matt Smith's third and final series, Series 7, we find out that she goes into his time stream to stop the Great Intelligence, a classic foe that made a return in Matt Smith's era. The Great Intelligence are an entity, an alien force or something that goes way back to Patrick Troughton's era. But yeah, the Great Intelligence, taking on the form of Dr. Simeon, played by Richard E. Grant, who we all know played the Shulker Doctor and is now apparently canon. And yeah, the Series 7 finale, The Name of the Doctor, was the start of a trilogy and the start of the 50th anniversary celebrations. And in that finale, we saw every past incarnation of the Doctor make a brief cameo, whether it was reused footage or body doubles. Yeah, because this was setting off the 50th anniversary celebrations. So yeah, at the end of that series, we were left on a cliffhanger where we see all the past Doctors, but we see one Doctor, or one incarnation who wasn't the Doctor. The Doctor saying it was him, but it wasn't the Doctor. That revealed to be played by John Hurt. And the cliffhanger ended there where it said introducing John Hurt as the Doctor. And then we had to wait months to find out what happens, what does this Doctor mean. But in the build-up to the 50th anniversary specials in the November of 2013, we were treated to a mini-sode called The Night of the Doctor, where we see an interactive episode. Now, at first, I thought this was going to be a quick, prequel to the 50th specials, but then we actually had the return of an old classic, Paul McGann reprising his role as the 8th Doctor. And when I saw that, my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my god, it's actually the 8th Doctor. And this tied in the classic era with the modern era. I like that the 50th anniversary specials did that. They tied the classic to the modern era, and we see Paul McGann's 8th Doctor finally get his long-deserved regeneration. It was on a 10-minute interactive episode, but we got to see it. Paul McGann make that 10 minutes count, where we see him regenerate into a de-aged John Hurt, implying that he, the War Doctor, as he was called, has fought in the Time War endlessly. So yeah, even though John Hurt wasn't the Doctor, he used a different name or not a name at all. He was just simply referred to as War Doctor, because he was the Doctor that fought in the Time War. For so long, we wondered which Doctor fought in the Time War, the 8th Doctor or the 9th Doctor. We now know it was neither, it was the War Doctor, making him the physical 9th embodiment of the Doctor, making the 9th Doctor the 10th Doctor, well, the 10th body, and yeah, the 10th Doctor, the 11th, etc. So yeah, we now know that in between, even though he wasn't the Doctor, it was still used regeneration. And again, John Hurt played him for one episode, and he was great. And also, a week before the 50th anniversary celebrations, we were treated to a docudrama TV movie called An Adventure in Space and Time, starring David Bradley as William Hartnell, where he played Hartnell in the first few years of Doctor Who, how it started and how it would continue. And we got a little cameo from Matt Smith as his Doctor, like a hallucination for William Hartnell when he had to make his unfortunate exit. But that showed, this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. So yeah. And then on November 23rd, 2013, we had the 50th anniversary special air. It featured the Daleks, the Zygons, returned as well for the first time in the revival era. We got David Tennant back as the Doctor. Christopher Eccleston was invited to come back, but declined, because he didn't want to come back. And we got David Tennant return as the 10th. And we just had this whole hour and a half of fun. And then, of course, after the 50th anniversary celebrations, we, the second part of that trilogy, The Day of the Doctor, we got the final special, the third part of the trilogy, The Name of the Doctor. Now, in the summer of 2013, Matt Smith announced that he was leaving the show out of the blue, but then again, we as Who fans would know that he backed down at the right time, which I thought, yeah, fair enough. But the big question in the air was, who was next? Could it be another man? Could it be a woman? Well, one night on BBC One, there was a live event called Doctor Who Live, where they did a half-hour build-up introducing the next Doctor. And after great anticipation, it was revealed that Peter Capaldi, long-time fan of the show, would be the 12th Doctor. So yeah, he was revealed. And I love that choice. I think, yeah, he's a bit older, but, again, does it have to regenerate into a younger person every time? And that, of course, they did explain it in the 60th anniversary, in the Christmas special. So yeah, Christmas Day 2013. It was also revealed that Matt Smith's Doctor was the last one, because we had 11 Doctors, but John Hurt's Doctor, the War Doctor, was still a regeneration. So that made the Ninth Doctor like the 10th body. And the 10th Doctor being the 11th. But in that Series 4 cliffhanger, The Stolen Earth and Journey's End, David Tennant channeled his regeneration energy into his hand, which at the time we thought, oh, okay, so it's a cancelled regeneration. But Stephen Moffat confirmed that, oh, no, this was still a regeneration, he just kept the same face. I was like, okay, so then that makes him 11 and 12. That makes Matt Smith's Doctor the last one, 13. So no regenerations left. But they fixed it. In that episode, the Doctor faced the Alliance, teamed up with the Silence, and in the end, it was just him and the Daleks, and him on his deathbed, where he was old and worn out. Looked a lot like William Hartnell, and just was, weak, but still stood up to the Daleks one last time. Well, one last time we fought. But we're going back to that crack. We found out the crack in time was the Time Lords, because in the 50th anniversary special, we find that, the Doctors, all of his past incarnations, including the 12th, took Gallifrey out of the Time War and into a pocket universe. And yeah, we see that happen. Also, the War Doctor succumbs to his old age, and we see him regenerate into the Ninth Doctor, but we see him just start to change his face physically. But we know he's going to become the Ninth. But yeah, the Time Lords were behind that crack, and to get them out, they had to hear the Doctor speak his name. But after Clara told the Time Lords he's the Doctor, that's all they need to know, they heard her plea and actually came to the Doctor's aid at the last minute, granting him a brand new regeneration cycle. So yeah, the show lasted 50 years. Stephen Moffat, despite him messing around with the regeneration cycle and that, gave the show a reason to run for another 50 years, even if we do get long gaps in between. So yeah, Matt Smith's Doctor burst out in energy, destroyed the Daleks, reset his body, gave us one final heartwarming speech, had a cameo from Karen Gillan in his mind, seeing her, and then we see him regenerate, not burst out into beams, but like quickly kick back as if he sneezed, and all of a sudden he became the 12th Doctor, Peter Capaldi, where Clara Oswald witnesses it. Me, at that time, I was sad seeing Matt Smith go, but then all the sadness just went, and we see Peter Capaldi, even for just a couple seconds, but still, it was fun seeing what was to come, as he would become that Scotsman, the one with the attack eyebrows.